Hello, hello, everyone. Hello. We are live on YouTube and on Instagram. So, we're talking about boundaries. So, before you set the boundaries or before you learn how to set the boundaries, you need to know how. Hello, hello, hello. Mwah, mwah. You need to know what are your boundaries. They're different. They're different for everyone. Some people will have like, oh, I can be with a person who is swearing and I feel okay. And for someone, it will be a trigger. And then you'll start to like, why someone is more easy on that and I'm not. And as soon as you start to question why, that's when we have all of these, inner conflicts. So first, what is the boundary? What is that? What is that personal boundaries? I want to say no when I want to say no. I want to say yes. I don't want to feel guilt, right? Guilt. We're going to talk a lot today about guilt, shame, and fear, because this is like a crucial point in setting the boundaries and knowing your boundaries. So lots about guilt, shame, and self-blame and that inner critic. And because it has all to do with boundaries. So first, what are the boundaries and when they are broken? So when a child is born, like, so if you don't remember maybe yourself being a small child, but when you were little, you had a natural buffer. So what it is, it's this natural, you don't see that, but it's on an energy level. This natural buffer around you, usually around the distance of your arms, right? So the energy buffer, what is this buffer? It muffles the sounds, the noises, the fights, so you're very in the moment, right? You rely on the parents to look after you, to take care of you, but at the same time, you're like in your own world. And this natural buffer, we all have it. We all have it. Some people less, some people won't, but we all have it when we were born. Just like this pure boundary, right? Pure comfort zone, safe zone. What is happening in this buffer? In this buffer, you have the space to react. So when a child gets angry, we sometimes see it as inappropriate or something is wrong. And maybe you are not allowed to feel anger. So if anyone you can, by the way, put in the chat if you had expressed anger, if you were allowed to express anger, because that has all to do with boundaries. Very often we see anger as an issue. It's a problem. And when you grow up, yeah, it can be a problem, right? Because it bothers you. But at the same time, when you're a child, anger is it's that reaction in the buffer when you don't like something. So you naturally set your boundaries with anger and frustration. So when you see these little kids, little toddlers giving tantrums, right? Or they're having these anger tantrums sometimes, like frustration, that's setting the boundaries. They are telling you that something is not appropriate, right? Something is not appropriate. Maybe they don't like when you're pushing the food into their mouth, right? Maybe they don't like when you are, touching them not in the right place, how they like it, right? Yes. However, in that buffer zone, something really interesting happens. Usually when a child is, for example, playing, like it's 2-3-year-old child, and someone is fighting, for example, parents or parents with older siblings, so they are able, if their boundaries are still intact, they're able to muffle that sound. They're still able to be in that, in that really nice flow mode. This is very natural for us. So sometimes when you even fight or argue with something, you can notice that the child is like, sometimes they are numbing, yeah, sometimes they're like, distracted, but very often they're just in that still space, a very safe space. And that's how this is how it works. Right? So if you have anger, by the way, or if you have triggers, when someone is arguing or someone is fighting and something is happening around, like in your surroundings, right? That might trigger you, right? You might feel like, why am I reacting to that? Why am I reacting to that? Like I want to be indifferent. This is what we want. We all want to be indifferent to any triggers, right? But somehow, no, we react. Sometimes we are either like hide, or we, shut down, or maybe we actually start to argue as well and actually get into the conflict as well. No matter the reaction, we are frustrated with ourselves that we're doing that, right? So the boundaries thinning out, and it starts to thin out very early in life. So 3 killers of personal boundaries. So we talked about this personal space, right? This personal buffer that you were born with. And usually you are setting your boundaries with anger, crying, and frustration. 3 emotions, right? How a child can show you that this is not comfortable, it's not acceptable, it's not appropriate, right? However, this is if it doesn't help. If crying, or if something confusing happens, like sexual abuse, by the way, in a very early age, it's something confusing. The child cannot understand, is it appropriate or not? Is it right or wrong? Like, let's say, look, a very small child, right? Maybe 4 or 3, right? That happens, and that's a horrible thing that happens. But we need to discuss it. If that triggers someone, please, I'm really sorry, but you need to know that. So when that happens, when something confusing happens, right? The reaction will be shutting down, maybe, right? Shutting down, getting like all of the, like your skin will be the trigger. The skin will be the trigger. The sexual abuse really, what happens in abuse, by the way, right? So when you go to the 3D movie, right, your senses are activated, right? So imagine that on that, if thoughts and feelings were activated as well. We activate a little bit of our feelings for sure in the 3D movie, right? We feel excitement, entertainment. But if it's something negative or something like sad, right? Something painful, right? Our thoughts and feelings are activated, and it starts to become like a bomb, really. Like that's the abuse, right? So touch, eyes, hearing, right? A smell, and the thoughts and feelings, and it all forms trauma, right? Trauma, and it can be different, right? It can be not only from sexual abuse, by the way. It can be from physical abuse. It can be from suppressed emotions, yelling, criticism, judgment, some unexpected moments, terrorist attack as well, right? It could be trauma as well. So anything and everything, by the way. Something that happened in front of your eyes, right? Sometimes kids are witnessing someone died in front of their eyes, or they're witnessing some traumatic experiences, car accidents, right? Loved ones dying or being terminally ill as well. That's as well a trauma, right? The child will not show that. The child, it will not show up. It will show up when the subconscious mind feels it's safe. It's safe now. And it usually happens when we grow up. Why do we feel the symptoms more, right? We feel the symptoms more when we grow up. We're like shutting down right away, distracting, right? Somehow it kind of works. But at the same time, the more we grow up, the more critical thinking, the logic develops, right? We start to gain wisdom. We start to look, compare. Okay, some people are healing, some people are not, but we start to really get this awareness. And that's how we start to realize, oh wow, something is not working. I'm triggered like this. I'm triggered like this. So, and that's when we start to realize that our boundaries actually are either non-existent or they're very blurred. So thinning out, right? So that buffer, right? And I will teach you today, by the way, a very good way how you can actually learn what is your safe distance, what is your safe boundaries in terms of distance, feelings, words, thoughts, behaviors, right? I'm going to show you these 5 ways how to really define what are your boundaries, because it's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be absolutely different. You can define your personalized way. Right? And then I will tell you 2 ways how you can work with boundaries and how you can set them. And it's going to be not a very long live. I'm going to keep you maybe for about 15 minutes. There is no way, there is no point in talking a lot about it, right? So as you may know, if you've watched my previous lives, subconscious mind doesn't know time. It doesn't know time, doesn't understand time. So because it doesn't know time, right, that's how we get triggered, right? This is how we react the way we don't want to react. So if any one of you, right, was ever having that, for example, someone crossed the boundary, right? You didn't set your boundaries, you didn't stand up for yourself, right? You might feel like, why I didn't do that? Because the subconscious mind doesn't know time. It reacts faster than your logic. It's quicker, right? It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to do that. So when you regret something that you did 2 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago, for example, a phone call from your parents who told you that they really need you this weekend, really need you this weekend. And then you're like, yes, mom, I'll come, right? And then you realize that I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I have kids, right? I want to spend time with them. I want to spend time with my husband or with my wife, right? Like you have plans. Or maybe you're going on a date, or maybe you're building your life. So, and then because the logic comes later, the logic works later a little bit than the subconscious mind. That's why, right? We react and act and sometimes say no when we want to say yes, or we want to say yes, we want to say no, right? So all of this confusion happens because subconscious mind takes over and acts, right, upon. What happens during the period of time between the age of like 2 and maybe 13, 14, I would say 15 maximum, these boundaries are either confirming, like, right, it's in the child, for example, in very conscious parenting, and conscious parenting is happening, right? The child kind of confirms their boundaries. Sometimes happens that between the age of 2 and 15, you first had your boundaries, you learn to shut them down, they're non-existent, right? Because, I don't know, based on the parenting. And then you start to show them at 13, 14, right? Wow, I start to get angry. The anger comes out, right? All of the issues comes out in the teenage years. By the way, if you shut them down in the teenage year, you're still gonna at some point live that rebel time. It can happen at 12, it can happen at 20, 21, right, 25. I had so many clients that told me that that they said like, oh, I was like a good girl until 18, or I was like a A student until 17, and they went wild. So at some point, if you didn't learn that a little bit of a rebel time, very often we do that later. Maybe not, but in many cases, yes. So if you didn't learn how to set your boundaries, if you were not allowed to say yes or no when you wanted to say that, right? When you were not allowed to express your anger, then the boundaries thin out. Like literally on the energy level, they thin out. And it works on the mental level as well, on the level of words and thoughts and feelings. What happens? We start to say that I don't matter, right? I don't matter. My needs don't matter, right? So, and someone else's needs are more important. They're very important. They're like priority. Okay, mom's needs are priority. Dad, like if you know and you can relate that we are, very often we are saying, oh, I had to be so quiet when dad came home because he was so mad. He was so mad all the time that we learned to stay away, to stay quiet, right? What did you learn? His needs are more important. His needs are more important. Mine are not. So those boundaries start to thin out. What happens in that moment, right? We start to have like huge inner conflict. Huge inner conflict because inside you know what's right, what's good, what feels comfortable for you. It's not allowed to feel like that. So split of the mind. It's like this. Split of the mind, right? So one side and the other side. That's why we have like inner critic, inner judge, right? We invite these roles and parts of us to start to punish us, criticize us, self-judgment, self-blame, and guilt. Guilt is the first, by the way, sign of the split mind, right? The first sign. We start to believe that I'm not good. I'm not a good person. If I'm not a good person, I'm a bad person. Like very, very, very normal human logic. If I'm not a good person, I'm a bad person. We start to self-punish ourselves very often. So please, define that. Think about that. It will be different for everyone. For someone, it will be suppressed emotions, right? For someone will be numbing, distracting, shutting down. For some people will feel more guilt. It's different. So very often people say that I know my boundaries. What they mean by boundaries is I build walls. I build walls around myself. And they think that it's boundaries. People who are isolating themselves, who are very distant from people, who it's harder for them to connect. They feel like it's my boundaries. I don't like to be around people. I like to be by myself, right? I like to be all the time. People are mean and they can hurt, so and that's my boundaries. That's not a boundaries. That's building the wall. The protection wall. This is different, right? People who are setting their boundaries, they're still very, very eager to connect to other people. So different. So did you build the walls or did you set the boundaries? It's a different. 3 killers of the boundaries. 3 killers. So first is blame. Blame, right? That turns into self-blame. Blame that turns into self-blame. This is yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Another one is, because by the way, if you were blamed for something, then you start to blame yourself. This is natural. This is natural. Someone's words, someone's voice becomes your voice. This is type of manipulation, right? It doesn't mean that our caregivers or parents were intentionally doing that. They came with their own, baggage of issues. So it's not good or bad. It just is. It's now in your power to change that. So when someone's voice becomes our voice, critic who is self-criticizing themselves, right? So when we are criticizing ourselves, it's because someone criticized us. It doesn't happen like that. People say, oh, no one criticized me. No, that's not possible. Your inner critic's voice is someone else's voice. Your teacher, your coach, your music teacher, your I don't know who that can be. Mom, dad, sibling. Very often trauma comes from from siblings. It's a very, very important and it's crucial a member of the family as well. So sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's siblings. So I guess blame. Another one is guilt. Guilt. When I feel I did something wrong, then your world starts to divide into right or wrong, good or bad. Oh, very dangerous. Very dangerous belief that something is good, something is bad, something is wrong, and something is right. Right? And we very, very start to be very polarized in that, and we start to feel guilt. I did something. Oh, it's so bad. I said something. Oh, it's so bad. It's wrong. That means I'm a bad person. Thank you for motivation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope it helps really. And the third killer. So the first one is blame, right? The second one is guilt. Guilt, a very toxic emotion, super toxic emotion, right? It's not your emotion. You were not born with it. I've already said that in my previous slides, that you are not born with guilt. So technically, right, it's not natural, not organic. So if you have that, right, it is possible to unlearn it, or at least to reframe it, or at least to understand that feeling. So if you have guilt, right, this is a toxic, unnatural feeling that you adopted. It's like, it's like something, some chronic, some physical condition, right? When you get a flu is not a natural, it's not like you were supposed to have a flu all the time. The same, you can unlearn it, release it, understand it, right? Reframe it, heal those parts with you that started to blame, you. And the third killer of boundaries, personal boundaries, is fear, right? Fear. And it comes after guilt. So when first we say we have blame, someone blames us, we start to blame ourselves. When we blame ourselves, we start to feel guilty, right? And then comes the fear. That comes the fear. So fear of judgment, right? Your mind understands that really hurts. Guilt hurts physically. So remember these words. Guilt, you feel it on a physical level really strongly. Really strong. You might not notice that, but you feel it for sure very, very strongly. So it's very often either in our heads with multiple thoughts, right here, right, and in your stomach. This is just how you can feel the guilt. So the fear comes after. So you start to be fearful of everything that happened in childhood. For example, fear of criticism, fear of judgment, fear of having your voice, expressing what you want. You start to have a fear of that because it's connected to pain. We very often I want to be confident. What does that mean, confident? That means like to express your emotions, right? To be really sure of what you say, to stand your ground, right? So all of these things, if you connected in childhood, if you connected them to pain, of course you're not going to do that. Of course, like naturally, your subconscious mind is going to block that behavior. It's going to just block that behavior. And you can heal, by the way, that on many levels, right? Many levels. There are so many bodies. We have physical body, we have emotional body, we have energy body, and we have mental body. Right? So 4 bodies. You can heal them on different levels. And if you work like in together, then it's amazing results. So when fear comes in, that's your blocker. So this is like the part that blocks you from actually standing up for yourself, from saying no when you want to say no, from defying someone, right? Like finally, right? It can stop you from quitting the job from toxic workplaces. It can stop you from so many things. And if you are questioning, or if you're questioning why I cannot do that, it can stop you from doing what you love, right? That's the same. Boundaries, it's the same. If I have my own boundaries, right, I can do what I want in these boundaries. And I don't care, right? Because I don't have fear, for example. So, but if you have fear, that's going to stop you from a lot of things, right? So when you want something, for example, I want to set the boundaries. I want to feel confident. I want to voice my needs. I want to really meet my needs first. I want to prioritize myself. I want to choose myself. By the way, this is why we feel, when we have children. I remember Anna was about 5 and I thought she was very selfish, because I was very, very traumatized, shut down, unaware, unconscious. So I thought she was very selfish. A 5-year-old child, very selfish, because she was choosing herself. She didn't care, really. She was choosing herself. And I shut down that. I shut it down. Put my power over it, right? And then only like 11, she was 11, when we started to really change that, because I was changed. So if you have young children that you're worried about, they're anxious or they have anxiety, or you have small children until 18, they're living in your household, you are changing and they are following, not the other way around. Doesn't happen like that. It happens after that, when children leave the house, right, and they start to heal, and they can help their parents. They can help their parents heal. But that happens after they gain, the freedom, the independence. They can do that, and they can help their parents. So remember that if you have children until 18, it's your job to heal yourself, and then they will follow. If you have children, for example, if you are a child and you would love for your parents to maybe recognize something, and you would love them to act differently, you heal yourself and they will follow. This is how it works, right? And it's very inert process. So don't expect someone to change in the terms that you put. Expectations create expectations, create tension. Tension creates worry and anxiety. So if you're naturally feeling anxiety and worry regarding other things, then don't put expectations on anything, especially on someone to change. So when we have these 3 killers, fear, guilt, and blame, right? It's like this, poison that really stops us from everything. You can even, by the way, write down everything you would love to do, but you cannot do something. We always feel like it's something that is holding me back. Something, right? We feel like when I figure out that something, then I'm going to be happy. Who is telling that to ourselves? When I'm going to have more money, I'm going to be happy. When I'm going to learn communication, I'm going to be happy. So we always feel like, something needs to happen to me so that I can become happier. That doesn't work like that. It's from inside out, right? I start to change my perception, and then the world around me changes. This is how it happens. So, when 5 ways how you can define your boundaries, how you can realize what's good for me, what's not, why I get triggered by these words, by these statements, why I get triggered by the same personality type. Very often, right? We feel like we see perfectionists and they start to trigger us. We see people who who show their authority. They can trigger us, right? And we feel like they do something that threaten my boundaries, especially at work. Especially at work. The first thing is the distance. So if for some people, someone will stand 2 meters from you, and you already feel triggered. You already feel triggered. You feel off. You feel a vibe. You feel something, right? So define what is your distance. What is not appropriate for you. For example, someone doesn't like too much hugging, too much kissing, like Italians, for example, right? They love touch. Their love language is touch. But for many people, it's not. So is it your natural boundary or is it your trigger? So you need to think about it, right? Right? Because sometimes, by the way, people feel like they are very, very open, right, with their family members, but they're very, very closed with someone else. So maybe that's your natural boundaries, right? But at the same time, when you feel triggered, right, even when your child comes to hug you or your partner comes to hug you, it's a trigger. It's a trigger. So you need to define. How you do that is you become like an observer. So when someone is around you, remember, Kate told me about the distance. I need to kind of feel how I feel around these people, right? So you become aware of how you feel around certain people, of what distance. Sometimes you see your boss, he's like 10 meters from you, and you feel okay. But as soon as he comes closer, or she comes closer, right, you start to feel, trigger, worry. So define, where is that? Where is that? I had a coworker, right? And I would come close, and they would, retrieve back, right? It was our first day getting to know each other, and that's how I realized, wow, that person just something gets triggered. Maybe they don't know me. Maybe something, they maybe expect that I'm going to attack or show my power, right? So I don't know what happened, but anyway, right? You could see. So define your distance. What is your distance? Is going to tell you a lot about your personal boundaries. A lot. Something happened. If you don't like someone to touch you, what happened? Why you don't like people to touch you? Maybe you don't like people who you don't know. That's completely normal, right? So think about that. Think of distance. The first way to define your boundaries is to realize, become aware how you feel around people and on what distance it is, right? The second way how to define your personal boundaries is words, right? Words. So like a lot of people will feel very comfortable with gossiping, right? But for you, it may be a trigger. You don't like it. You don't feel comfortable in it. So define what are your words that trigger you. So today, for example, I had a situation with my husband in the car, right? When I got triggered by words. You know why? Because we have completely different meaning to words. When someone tells you something, you realize it from your perception, but the person has a completely different meaning of that word. So for them, it's normal. For you, it's not okay. Right? So define what words. Sometimes swearing, sometimes blaming. Right? Sometimes a very nice, too nice. For example, right? The people too nice. Right? They're starting to kind of like saying to being like this too positive for you, right? So what triggers you, right? Then you can look around these words and think about what these words mean to me. What swearing means to me. I said swearing because my daughter, she doesn't like swearing when I say something out of emotions, right? She doesn't like it. It triggers her, and I know why. She had an emotional, traumatic experience with me, always with me. It's parents, right? But it's okay. We're gonna work on that. We are working on that already. So no guilt, no shame. Remember, no guilt, no shame, no regrets. Everything that happens exactly for you to be here, exactly for you to be here and to learn more about yourself and to release that pain, for example, that was holding you. Words, define, write down the words that trigger you. Write down the words, and you will know. You will know exactly what triggers you. Exactly what triggers you. And that this is an incredible way to know your boundaries. To know your boundaries. But for example, if someone is telling you something, for example, a feedback, and you say, that doesn't feel comfortable, you will know, you will become so aware. Oh, this is the word that triggers me. This is what Kate was telling in life, right? Become more aware of what you're saying, what you're hearing, right? The other way to know your boundaries are the feelings, very strong impulses, right? The feelings. So feelings is how you feel around the person, right? So when your mom or dad calls, or when your boss, your coworker, your manager, your supervisor, your sibling, your partner can be your trigger as well. Very often that happens, right? And we sometimes really deny that. And then we're like, oh, actually, it's my partner who triggers me. But you get triggered by someone's words. When you think about the feelings, you write down people you don't feel comfortable with. People you don't feel comfortable with, but they are still in your environment, right? Your subconscious mind will even, by the way, this is very important, please listen to me. Your subconscious mind will even connect a very similar faces as a trigger. So, for example, if someone looks like your abuser, or looks like your teacher who was very mean to you, or he looks like your friend who dumped you, or looks like your ex-partner who cheated, for example, or who wasn't very, who wasn't very respectful, you get triggered even by that person who looks like. It doesn't mean that they are them, but your mind is it generalizes. Remember, your subconscious mind likes to generalize, to help you, by the way, to help you, right? So, for example, if you see a lion, you're gonna get pretty freaked out if you see it right in front of you. And when you see a tiger, right, your mind generalizes, right? The same with triggers. Your mind generalizes the triggers. Your subconscious mind loves to generalize the triggers. So think about what you feel around that person and why. Very often you get triggered just because, there's something in here. It's most of the time there is something in here that triggers you. Yeah. Oh, 4:30 a.m., right? Oh, I'm super happy that you're listening at 4:30 a.m. Wow. By the way, I usually woke up very early to listen to my master classes that were very, very interesting to me. So feelings. How do you feel around that person and why? Sometimes they look like someone. Sometimes they did something that long ago, right? And by the way, I had clients whose parents were very abusive, and they are, without working through that, they're still in a very close relationship, very close relationship, like totally like living together almost. And you're like, how are you going to heal if you are just, those boundaries are thinning out, right? And we feel that trigger every single day. Environment is very strong. In most cases will be stronger than you, in most cases, until you learn, that healing process, until you start to stand up for yourself, until you gain back your voice. Your environment is going to be a trigger. That's how it is. So feelings. Think about how you feel. If you feel regrets, if you feel guilt, if you feel shame, your boundaries were crossed, right? That was something to do with boundaries. Or there was guilt after doing something, blame, or like something. Your needs were not met. You didn't put your needs first. Something was there. Something was there. Number 4 is touch, right? Touch. So the distance, we talked about the distance. The other one is touch. Who do you allow to touch you? Who do you allow to hug you? Who do you allow to put the arm on your shoulder, right? In order to do that, I've talked about it in my intimacy triggers. By the way, if you want to watch that YouTube video, is really important to know that information. Who has intimacy triggers? I have a YouTube video about that. It's really interesting. So you start to touch yourself first, right? You start to touch yourself first to learn back that safety mode, right? That it's okay if you have that, right? But touch. Who do you allow to touch you and who you don't allow? You feel uncomfortable, right? Sometimes even our parents will get triggered when they touch because it reminds us of something, maybe physical abuse, right? Maybe something. Sometimes it does. And it, by the way, your body holds the memory. It never forgets. The subconscious mind, the rule of the subconscious mind is it never forgets. Ever. If you feel like you forgot, your subconscious mind didn't forget. If it wasn't processed, it didn't forget. So this is how it works. So, and number 5, right? Number 5 is the perception. So how can you know your boundaries? By perception. If you have someone, maybe it's a workplace, maybe it's the group of friends, maybe it's the family members, right? What are they holding you back from? What are they holding you back from? Are they helping you grow? Or are they holding you? They're actually make you feel like, like you feel around them, not really good. So are they helping you grow? So the perception, how you see them. What is your perception? Are they just, I'm needy because I'm afraid to be lonely, right? As well. You can see that, okay, my boundaries are not there. If I'm needy and I'm clingy, I will always cross my boundaries. Always, right? To become needy, codependency. I have another life about codependency. So please watch it, right? I have another life. When you have time, watch about codependency because it talks a lot about like being clingy, being needy, right? You will always step over your needs. And anxiety is the root cause is not putting your needs first, and not being like fear of judgment, fear of criticism as well. There are so many issues that are connected to that. So we talked about it, right? So 5 ways how you can define your boundaries, and it will take you about really 10 minutes 10 minutes of your life to sit down and think about touch, right? Perception, words, feelings, and distance. Right? So fun, like 10 minutes, come on, really. Like if you don't have 10 minutes or if you put it aside, it means, wow, do you have a life? Do you have a life if you don't have 10 minutes for self-analysis and self-work? Because if you don't, then there's a bigger problem than boundaries, really. There's something much deeper. Right? I don't matter, right? I'm not important. Something is more important. Like there are some other deep roots in there. You have two ways how to work on boundaries, how to set your boundaries. 2 ways. So once you define what is good for you, what feels comfortable, what feels appropriate, what feels like you're growing with these people, right? So once you define your boundaries, it's time to think about how do you nurture them, or how do you work on them? How do you release that past, right? If there is something, and it's probably something if you feel there is a problem with boundaries. And the best way, you can work in the present, or you can work with your past, right? So what does that mean, working with your past? It means looking back and finding those moments when you formed the belief that your needs don't matter, right? So regression therapy, timeline therapy. I'm working as a hypnotherapist. I love RTT method. I love, it's like the whole journey, present and past, like, right? It combines 2 of them. So looking back at the events, but with your mind, with your smart, conscious mind. So you look at the past. Oh, this is why. Oh, yes, right? So this is really important. You can work with the past in self-analysis meditations. So not the guided meditations that just like kind of guide you to relax your body, your muscles. These are really good as well, part of the healing process for sure. But there are meditations that are called, it's a specific way, it's a specific type of meditations that actually guides you there into the past to work with your subconscious mind, right? Working with your subconscious, even sometimes awakening an unconscious mind, right? So I have the whole course, by the way. I have a whole course of 18 of those. Guilt, shame, inner critic, judgment, right? Fears, phobias, making a decision. So lots of issues that you resolve or find the solution to, right? In just 18 days. Can you imagine that, right? So I've learned this method of the self-analysis meditation. It's a specific method where you actually, it's like a therapy, self-therapy. The course is even called You Are the Therapy, because you are. And you can work as well. And if you're interested, the link is in the bio. Please look at it, see what it is, what kind of lessons are there, right? Classes, like what are you going to learn? Like it's like almost whole your life kind of resolved in, not resolved, but actually you are going to understand why, how, and where I started to do that. Wow, it's so different. It's like a transformation right in those 15, 18 minutes of that meditation. And you can also work in the present. You can work in the present. What it is it's exposure therapy. So this is what actually a lot of therapists are telling you to do. You go out there and you start to say no. You just start to say no. And for many people, it works magically. Really, people just wake up one day and I was like, no, I'm done, right? And that's going to be that quantum leap, right? That healing moment. But a lot of people, it's still challenging. They come home after someone's advice or a therapy session, and it feels like I know what to do, but I can't do that. As soon as someone calls, and as soon as your friend wants to an extra help that you really cannot give that extra help, and you feel okay, I'll go, and then again, right? Again, you say no to your own needs. If that was the case. If you actually had something else to do, more important in terms of your values, but you decided, no, I'm going to help, I'm going to please someone, right? Working in the present is exposure therapy. So you go and expose yourself to saying no, feeling that guilt inside, working with the guilt, right? Starting to tell yourself, no, I'm letting go. I'm not guilty. There's nothing to blame me for, right? My daughter came back. And so when you do that, right, it can help you build that resistance. So the exposure therapy, right? You expose yourself to saying no, to putting your needs first, to loving yourself, to nurturing yourself, all of these things are very crucial. They're very important. And for what I have seen in my clients, for 95%, they cannot do that. Because the past is holding and having its hold on them so strongly that no matter how much they come back and they tell me, like, I tried. Like I had a live session on Instagram, and we were talking about how to stand up for yourself, right? The manipulators and narcissists. We were talking about narcissistic abuse, right? And they text me later. I know, Kate, I know I had to say this and this and this, and I didn't. And I didn't say that. So a lot of people, 95%, about 90 to 95% will not be able to expose her own. And she woke up, gotta go. Sorry. Yeah, of course. Yeah, go. Absolutely. Have that connection time with your daughter, and maybe she will come back to bed and sleep well. Okay. I love you all. You can work in both ways, present and past. I love working with the past, but not for a long time. Not just going there and looking at, no, you go there, you want, okay, we realize, and you change the behavior that you have now. So, or you change the reaction, you change the perception. Or you can work with the present, which is exposure therapy, which is like learning. It also helps. It's just harder to get out and get that first move, because there is a lot in the back. And it depends. You need to know yourself to know what's best for you. But if you're interested, my course on doing that and learning how to love yourself and really come out of these, like, old patterns and old limited beliefs is in the bio. Please look at it, see if that's something. I have like a discount, a 50% off coupon, and I'm going to put it in the description right now when I end this live, and you can absolutely look it up and see if you are ready for that transformation. So I love you all. Bye. Be healthy emotionally and physically.